So, Lone Rider here. I was watching the news today and I saw something that gave me kind of a start. We've all heard about those cases where people will go get an angry mob and they'll try and surround somebody while they're, let's say, eating a sandwich at Starbucks, and they'll hassle them and they'll make a disturbance in the restaurant. And they say they're just trying to confront people. Well, of course, you're causing a disturbance in somebody's place of business. You're trying to intimidate somebody while they're just trying to eat their lunch or whatever. It's not cool. It's not acceptable behavior. It shouldn't be encouraged. Frankly, the business owners, I mean, you know, if I ran a diner or something, right? Let's say, you know, I was the chef or the diner owner, and somebody came into my diner and started hassling one of my customers and disturbing all the other customers in there and making it impossible for me to run my business and for my employees to earn a living and me to earn a living and people to eat their lunch. I would just call the police and say, there's people in here causing a disturbance, come take them away, you know? I mean, I don't know why. Granted, in some of these cases, the business owners do. Of course, the people usually flee by the time the police get there, but, you know, I mean, I know, like if you went to my friend's bike shop and you started a ruckus, you brought a ruckus to the bike shop, I know what would happen. He'd ask you to calm down, he'd ask you to leave, and if you didn't leave, he'd either call the cops or he'd physically eject you from the bike shop. That's what happens when you bring a ruckus to somebody's place. You're not supposed to do that. But these things are bad enough, and there's not enough people condemning them. I wish more people would say, you know, I don't care if you agree with the politics of the angry mob. The point is they shouldn't be acting like an angry mob. They shouldn't be causing a disturbance. But causing a disturbance in Starbucks is bad enough. What happens when you wake up and you look out the window and there's 20 angry guys on your lawn and they're trying to bash down your door like they're, you know, storming Helm's Deep? Well, that's actually what happened. I heard on the news today, apparently this guy from Fox News, Tucker Carlson, he's like a political commentator or something. Apparently he and his wife were home and they looked out the window and there was a whole angry mob on the front lawn, and instead of leaving, the angry mob accosted the house and tried to actually break down the door, and they physically damaged it. They splintered the door trying to get in. Now, I don't understand why anybody would ever think it's appropriate to cause a disturbance inside a place of business like a restaurant. But I have an even harder problem understanding why anybody would think it's appropriate to trespass on somebody's property, on their lawn, on their home, and then even further to try and break down the door to the house with the people inside. Who on earth would even think about doing it? You know who thinks about doing that? Burglars. You know who thinks about doing that? Robbers. You know who thinks about doing that? Home invasion crews. You know who thinks about doing that? Rioting, violent mobs. You know who doesn't think about doing that? Regular people who are just protesting over a political issue, okay? And this is the first case I've heard of where somebody tried to break down the door to a person's home, you know, where an angry mob actually tried to break into the home with the people inside. But I guess we should have seen it coming, because it's not a far stretch from causing a disturbance inside the Starbucks to following the person home and trying to hassle them while they're at their house. I mean, the Starbucks is private property too, right? You shouldn't be causing a disturbance there any more than you should at somebody's home. But the point is, it's a little more frightening when you're talking about people's houses, right? You go out in public, or you go to a restaurant or a movie theater or something. You expect to be in a place where other people can come and go, right? As long as they abide by the rules of the establishment. In your own home, you set the rules. It's your property. People shouldn't be coming and going unless you're okay with them being there, unless they're invited, basically. And yeah, nobody cares if somebody's walking and they accidentally walk across your lawn, trying to take a shortcut or something. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an angry mob, setting up on your lawn, camping on your lawn. They shouldn't be doing that. The police should have come and taken them away immediately, dispersed them by any means necessary to get them off that person's property. If they have to shoot them with tear gas, fine. They shouldn't be there, all right? Who goes to somebody's house and tries to threaten them in their house? Seriously, what the hell's wrong with you, man? But then, to try to break down the door to the house with the people inside, right? Now, I don't know about you, but I got to wonder, what person would ever think that this is a good idea to do this? And then, furthermore, what person would think that it's a good idea to try and, I mean, it's bad enough they're on his lawn, but to then physically try and break down the door to the house, physically attack the house, when there's people inside? Again, there are people who occasionally do this sort of thing. They're hardened criminals. They're home invasion crews. They're violent mobs. Regular people don't do this unless they got a screw loose. But we know that there's been an increasing move in this country to encourage this kind of behavior. There's always been wackos on the left and the right. But what I've seen lately is, people, whenever you have a large angry mob that's publicly being violent, not just one or two lunatics, lone people who might do some crime or something, like the guy who sent the pipe bombs, for example, recently. They hail from all over the political spectrum. But whenever you have large mob violence, I honestly have to say, like 8 times out of 10, it's guys on the left. Yeah, occasionally you have right-wing people who do mob violence, like those guys in Charlottesville, but, I can't think of a single leftist political commentator that had an angry mob physically try to break down the door of his house with him and his wife inside. Right? I mean, nobody's going to like Don Lennon's house or something and saying, I don't like your leftist politics, and trying to bash down the door and kill him inside his house or assault him inside his house. Nobody's doing that, right? What are they doing? Well, they're going to some guy from Fox News who's clearly to the political right. And who are the people that are doing this? They're to the political left. The same guys that go to the universities and try to beat people up and throw flaming trash cans through windows because they don't like what a speaker that's invited to speak at the college is going to say. I have a novel idea. If you don't like what the speaker's going to say, don't go to the lecture. Just a thought, right? I mean, there's a lot of movies I don't like. I just don't watch them. I'll watch something else. And you know what? If you do want to protest, there's a way to do that. You protest with a sign, you chant, you do whatever. You don't try and assault people, right? Protesting is protected under the First Amendment because it's the expression of your views. It's you giving voice to what you think and feel. Your freedom of speech stops where somebody else's face or window or front door begins, okay? You have the right to speak your mind. You don't have the right to assault somebody, to destroy property, or to make a menace out of yourself in terms of committing violence in the streets or causing a disturbance on somebody else's property. And, I got to wonder if this got shut down with heavy, heavy criticism when people first started seeing it. Things like guys being harassed at restaurants and stuff. If that really got condemned across the board, across the political spectrum by the left and the right, that maybe we would never have got to the point where an angry mob tried to break down the door of a guy's house just because they don't like his politics. But we did. And I got to wonder how much of it is people contributing. You've got folks like Maxine Waters up there saying, well, not only are they not condemning this sort of thing, they're encouraging it. They're saying, first thing you do if you see somebody you don't like is you go get an angry mob. People who say things like that, do they not think long term? Do they not ask themselves, what will this lead to? Where will it end? Maybe somebody could get hurt. That even if nobody gets seriously injured or killed, it's still not good. It doesn't lead to an improvement in political discourse. It doesn't lead to an improvement in how we deal with each other in society. That angry, violent mobs trying to break down the home of somebody, I mean, not for nothing, but I can't think of anything that's more guaranteed to polarize politics in this country than people with one political belief being afraid that people of another political belief are going to try and kill them, pull them out of their beds at night and kill them. And I mean, you can't tell me that an angry, violent mob splintering the door of somebody's house like they're trying to bash it down, you can't tell me that they just wanted to have a conversation with this guy, right? They were trying to break down the door of his house with him and his wife inside. And that, brings to the last thing, which is, I don't know about you, if I woke up and I saw 20 people on my lawn, my first thing to do would be call the police. My second thing to do would be call anybody I knew in the neighborhood and let them and warn them. The third thing to do would be get some kind of a weapon to defend myself in case they tried to get in, and if necessary, get some kind of a ranged weapon so I could maybe, get them before they come in, maybe firing from the windows, for example. I don't have any guns, I have my bow. Shoot a couple arrows at them, maybe try and get them to leave. So it never gets to the point of them trying to break down my door. And you know what, since it's my property and I'm the one being threatened, that's my prerogative. Now, I've never thought about doing anything like that before, and I probably never will in my life. But the point is, I'm bringing it up because when you try to break into somebody's home, Now you're a criminal. Okay, you're not a protester. You're a criminal. And in fact, you're a violent criminal. All right, because they're not just trespassing on the lawn. They're trying to break down the door with people inside. That's a direct physical threat to anybody inside that house. And if, unlike me, one of those people happens to have a firearm, they may try to defend themselves, right? This angry mob of stupid, violent people is really, frankly, lucky that Tucker Carlson didn't just grab a shotgun or something and shoot through the door when his wife said, "I'm scared of this mob," and they started banging down the door. They are really lucky he didn't just, fire from the windows or something with a 12 gauge, right? Or again, just shoot through the door. And the problem is, when you introduce violence, violence can happen. It's that simple. You're committing violence against somebody else in their home by trying to break down the door and assault them in their home. What do you think is going to happen? Yes, they're going to call the police. Yes, they're going to be scared, which may be what you're trying to do, scare them. But the point is, if it gets to the point where they're scared enough, they may try and defend themselves. And depending on how lenient that person is, or how tolerant that is, or how much they care about their public image, they may not wait till you break down the door to open fire. Right? They may, if I had to choose between having my door damaged by a bunch of, political thugs who probably aren't going to be able to pay for it, or stop them before they get to the door, I'll stop them before they get to the door. If somebody's got to pull an arrow out of their leg, they shouldn't have been trying to break in my house. And we shouldn't even be talking about this, right? I don't do archery because I want to shoot people. I do archery because it's fun. I shoot at targets, paper targets. But yeah, if somebody breaks in my house, I'm going to grab whatever I can to try and protect myself, whether it's a bat or whether it's one of my swords or whether it's my bow, depending. And if I can stop them before they get to the door and try to break it down, hell yeah, I'm going to try and do that. Why should I give them a fair shot? They shouldn't even be on my property, let alone trying to bust down the door. Now, I'm not Tucker Carlson, so the likelihood of this ever happening to me or a lot of other people is probably very slim. But the point is, what do they what do these people think the message it sends when you have this kind of violence? They think people see this on the news. What do you think people's first reaction is going to be? Yay for the violent mob. No, people are going to say, oh my God, what do I do if that happens to me? And they're going to start thinking, and they're going to say, well, what do I have to protect myself? How secure are my windows, Maybe I should cut down those bushes so I have a good field of fire. I don't know. But the point is that it doesn't make people feel more secure, and it just makes the likelihood that something could go horribly wrong and somebody could get hurt more likely. So don't do it. Don't be a dumbass. Don't try and break down the doors of people's homes with them inside. Don't try and act like an angry mob. People poo-poo it when folks compare, the Antifa guys and all these goons to Nazi brown shirts. Because they say, well, after all, they're anti-fascists, so why are you comparing them to Nazis? Because they act like it, okay? Guys wearing all black trying to beat people up in the street or break down the door. And yes, I'm aware I'm wearing all black. That's a coincidence. I just happen to be wearing a black sweatshirt because I was working with tools and I didn't want it to something that would show dirt. But you've got all these goons dressed in dark clothes trying to beat people up in the street, break down doors, barging onto people's property. What does that remind you of? I don't know. It kind of reminds me of the brown shirts, right? Kind of reminds me of the fascists. Yeah, that's exactly what it reminds me of, actually. So, and then you have they're trying to break down somebody's door, and because they don't like his political beliefs. Well, what does that sound like? I don't know about you. This sounds like a proto-Gestapo forming here. Yeah, and again, if your idea is to try and improve the political discourse in this country, you don't do it by making everybody start to wonder if people of the other view are going to try and murder them in their beds at night. And what do you think people are going to think of when they hear a story that, prominent conservative political commentator attacked in his home by people trying to break down the door? Do you think it's going to make people who aren't to the far left more understanding of the far left, more likely to find common ground with them, more likely to work out some kind of deal? No, it's going to make them less likely to listen to anything they have to say because they're going to say to themselves, well, I know those guys try to pretend they're reasonable, but shit. A whole bunch of them tried to break down that dude's door the other day. What if that was my house? And that honestly is not an unreasonable reaction to have. So this should be condemned across the board. Nobody should be engaging in this sort of violence. And people like this, somebody should send them a public service announcement and say, oh, and by the way, people have a right to protect themselves. So you better seriously think about, the next house you try to break the door down on, you might want to make sure the guy doesn't have like a 12 gauge by his bed or something, or a bunch of arrows. I mean, just a thought. But yeah, people, I don't know. How did we get to the point that people have to worry, that an angry mob might come and try to break down their door? What the hell is wrong with folks? We can start with the fact that nobody condemned this when it was just hassling people and causing a disturbance in a restaurant. If people had nipped this in the bud then, with widespread condemnation from both sides of the political system, maybe it would never have got to this point. But now it has, and now we have to say, where does it go from here? It can go in one of two places. We can shut this down quickly and demand that people act like grown people and adults, not like a bunch of, kids on a sugar high on a rampage, or a bunch of prototypical fascists. Or we can say, okay, if you're going to act like you're on a rampage and you're a prototypical fascist, then I'm going to treat you like one. I'm going to treat you like I treat anybody else who tried to break down the door with me and my family inside the house. I'm going to put a load of buckshot through that door, and I really don't care about you at this point because you're breaking the law and you're a criminal. I really wish we would never have to get to this point. I really wish we could take a step back and say, it's not worth it. It's not worth it to turn politics into physical attacks on other people just because you don't like their beliefs. Basically, I wish people would just grow the frick up. But instead, we have voices of maturity, like Maxine Waters, saying, well, if you see somebody you don't like, first thing you do is you go and you get a mob. Yeah, where did she think this would end? Like I said, the first time somebody gets seriously hurt in one of these things, whether it's by the police trying to disperse them or whether it's by somebody inside the house trying to defend themselves against the mob when they try to break down the door or whatever, the first time somebody gets hurt, who do you blame? Well, obviously you blame the mob, but I'd say you also blame all the people that are encouraging it, all the people that are inciting this sort of behavior. And I mean, like I said, start with Maxine Waters and work all the way down. There's a lot of these people out there, and they bear moral, if not legal, responsibility for everything they're encouraging. And there's people on the right as well who need to tone it down. Although I don't see anybody on the right saying go out and get an angry mob. There's wackos on both sides, obviously, but thus far, a lot of the explicit advocacy I've seen has been from the left, which kind of squares with, again, you've got wackos on both sides, but when it comes to large groups publicly engaging in mob violence, 8 times out of 10, I say it's probably people on the left. Of course, the thing is, it doesn't matter who it is. It's wrong, and that's the point. Right? It doesn't matter whether it's Tucker Carlson's house or Don Lemon's house. You don't go and try to break down somebody's door just because you don't like their politics. And if you do, don't be surprised if you get arrested or if the person in the house tries to defend themselves. And you know what? If anything happens to you in the course of that, you brought it on yourself by being a criminal and by being a dumbass and trying to break down their door. So don't come crying at the rest of us and be like, I tried to break down this guy's door as part of a 20-person politically motivated home invasion crew, and he shot me in the foot. I can't believe he shot me in the foot. Well, maybe you shouldn't have been trying to break down his door, you dumbass. Think.